Hello and happy Thursday via live. Welcome to the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. My name is Christian and I'm your host for today. And what I want to talk to you guys about today is the actionable steps you can take to ignite your creative entrepreneurial spirit in the hospitality industry. So let's get started. Hello, Christian here, the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show. Happy Thursday, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about the 10 steps, and I'm a big fan of 10, the 10 steps you can take to have actionable strategies in place to keep igniting your entrepreneurial spirit within the hospitality industry. And for me, being an entrepreneur now and working on my own for almost 7 years. So for me, I always looked at myself an entrepreneur. I went out and I was seeking out a friend of mine who is currently my business mentor. And at the time, he ran a multi-$100 million division of a company. And eventually, he became the CEO of that company for an international food company. And he helped me put together 10 steps. And I'm actually having my notes up right here from what he thought at the time a successful entrepreneur in the hospitality industry needs to do. And for me, now when I think back, it was probably the pivotal moment in my career where I really had some clear direction of what you need to do. And if you have been following me and listening to this podcast now for a while, you know that I'm a big believer. Here's my little ding. It's progress over perfection. So just start doing something, because as you start, you will figure out really, really quick, where you want to go. So what we started, back in 2011, which was my side hustle, is totally different what we do today, but it's still serving the hospitality industry. And as I'm growing, I want to just share more of what helped me being successful. So with that, let's get into it. The 10 points, which are actionable strategies you can take today to see an impact tomorrow. And every entrepreneur, if it doesn't just need to be in hospitality space. It works really for anybody in any industry. And the first thing is, for me, you need to set aside for creative exploration, if you want to call that. You need to have some designated time, if you do it weekly or bi-weekly, for brainstorming some new ideas and just spend some time with yourself around what you would like to get done. And I also call number one clarity. It's really important to get really clear of what you do, because then it's easy or easier to execute on that. The second thing for me, and that was probably the most important one, is, for lack of better words, I called it a inspirational library. So every time I read something, rather than reading the full article, I just ripped out the page and I filed it away. And I learned this from John Maxwell. And I put it away and I called it my inspiration library. And every time I had 20 minutes or an hour, I went to that folder and I pulled things out. And then every time I pulled things out, I marked it operational, personal, financial, whatever it was, and I refiled it. And the next time I needed some inspiration around one particular thing, that's where I went. And for me, that works with reading books, reading articles, listening to podcasts, doing case studies, both inside and outside the hospitality industry, because you can learn a lot of things from outside we can bring in here. And for me, every time I went through my folder, it sparked innovation. And for me, that's probably the single best thing anybody can do. And you probably heard it said, if you read an hour a week in your industry, within a year or two, you're going to be an expert. You know more than anybody else in that industry. And for me, number two, creating that inspiration library, whatever you want to call it. You can call it whatever you like, works really, really well. Also, what my mentor at the time said to me, you need to adopt a creative routine. And that's really works into, hey, what do I need to do on a daily basis to keep my mind actively engaged around innovation? That could be, we have it, we create. And for me, that's all about having conversations with other inspirational people. It's also super important to stay not just engaged with them, act on it. If you hear something, try it out. I see so many great chefs in our industry when they hear something really amazing, rather than acting on it, they just say, "Hey, someday I will." And then if you don't act on it, you know about it. You really don't know about it because you really haven't implemented it. So really, really important. So after that, having that inspiration library, have a daily creative routine. And for me, my creative routine is when I get here to the office before anybody else, and I usually get here about 2 hours before the rest of my staff comes in. It's my time. And I learned this from Tony Robbins. He calls it the hour of power. Doing an hour stuff for me, reading something motivational, listen to something motivational, working out, and just using, my time for me. They get clear on what I want to do. And also it helps me kind of get focused for the day. And I've been practicing so long that I actually have a journal about it. So if you want to get the journal, just write on the bottom, DM us. I'd be more than happy to send you a free copy. Step number three is you need to develop a feedback loop. And that could be with a trusted mentor, it could be with a peer you respect, it could be with a customer. Getting input and refining the ideas you're working on with that new approach or that new thing you're getting from them ensures that you have a real world need and expectations, which is really important because sometimes us as entrepreneurs, we get so caught up and we can, one of my friends calls it go to the moon, but people live here on earth. So it's really that we need to stay grounded. For me, having that feedback loop is really important because I go to people I absolutely trust. I also go to people which I know will give me honest feedback. Feedback is not great if it's not honest and you can't act on it. But taking that feedback and refining what we're working on really drives the program home, and it helps you to make it a more successful program. So it's really important because I think it helps you stay grounded and stay within the real world needs. Number five for me is challenge yourself with new experiences. And as chefs, we don't do a really good job at that. But what I encourage you to do is you could take a class, go to a program you have always wanted to, even learning a new language. It kind of keeps you thinking differently and it will engage not just your spirit. It kind of, I think it makes you look and sound different. And also I heard it said if you speak or learn a new language, that it activates your brain a lot more because you need to have that new thought process because you're trying to convey your needs or something within a new language. And then also if you go to a program you haven't been before, and for me, I always use the example. Many years ago, I was very active in the ACF, and I loved the ACF. And then the RCA came, which is the Research Chef Association. And the very first time going to an event for the Research Association, it blew my mind because these were chefs, but they spoke differently. They thought differently. And for me, it's just one of those things we need to do more often, and it needs to be scheduled because if it doesn't get scheduled, it's a dream and it will never get done. It only gets done if you schedule it, and it will help you to enhance cognitive flexibility and inspires innovative thinking. So if you haven't done that, book yourself an event and challenge yourself with some new experiences. Number six, use constraints as a creative tool. And as my mentor gave me this for the very first time, I says, what do you mean give myself constraints? And there could be a time constraint, a resource constraint, or it could be a budget limit. And a good example around that was we were working on a program for that company I work for, and we called it Under Five. And under five was under $5, under 500 calories. And it helped us just not looking at recipes and ingredients stuff, and it also helped us to kind of reinvent things because $5 and making money on it, it doesn't take a lot of food cost in that perspective, and it made us totally different think differently. And then as that program was successful, we came back and what we said earlier, we challenged ourselves to do something different, and we came up with under $3, under 300 calories. So really important, use constraints because constraints have help you not just think differently, it helps you develop new processes because if you put yourself a equipment restraint in order to get to that final outcome, you need to be creative. If you put yourself a time constraint, and Wolfgang Puck always told me that it's really important when he had his R&D chefs, he said, you have a set amount of time. Whatever the program is, it's done. We put it out in the marketplace because if I give you more time, you will take more time. And you don't need more time. We need feedback. And that's where we talked about earlier is that feedback loop. Very important. So for me, point number six is give yourself constraints and not just constraints, but make it a creative tool because you will be amazed on what you can learn and how it forces you and your team to think differently. For me, number seven, we called it harness the power of visual thinking. And for me, maybe the name doesn't really say it, but for me, have you ever done storyboarding or have you done mood boards and have you done mind mapping to organize your thoughts and your ideas visually? It's super powerful because it can help you recognize pattern links and opportunities. And those could become evident when you write it or when you see it or when you speak to it. And for me, seeing it visually, because I believe all our chefs are very visual people because we're creative people. Anybody in the food industry, for that matter, is a very creative person. So it's really important to kind of force yourself to think differently. So if you overlay that you put some constraints on it and then do it visually, it's super powerful. And for me, it became one of our family activities. For New Year's, we do vision boarding. If you haven't done that, it's absolutely an amazing thing to do. And we go out, and each of my family members can buy two magazines which we bring back. We have it lying on the dining room table. And then we kind of look through it. We take stuff out which we feel speaks to us at the time, and in order for us to lay out what our new year is going to look like, and then we give ourselves a time constraint, and we talked about this earlier. And then when we done, we actually presenting it to each other. We presenting it to each other, and we ask feedback. If my wife would present something, I ask her, "Hey, tell me more about that." Or when my kids do that, so it's really powerful actually seeing it visually. I just think it gives it more form. So again, for us, number seven is the power of visual thinking because having a mind map, having a storyboard or a mood board just changes everything because it gives it shape, it gives it form. Really, really important. Number eight, and you hear me talk about number eight all the time, keep a journal. And not just keep a journal, I call it keep it a what if journal. What if we do this differently? What if we put ourselves a time constraint on it? What if we create this? Because I honestly believe a what if question opens creative thinking. It just not opens creative thinking, it just gives the whole thing more realm. For me, a what if is is a really great way to not just do an exercise, but it can open up that new way of thinking. It can open up that new way of thinking, which leads to new ideas, new solution, which you normally have never thought about. What if super, super powerful. And you hear me talking about a journal all the time because I honestly believe I have journals everywhere. And actually, I have a journal right here, which is almost, I have 4 pages left. So this is my March journal. I finish one of them a month because I honestly believe if a life is worth living, it's worth recording. If you want to create something amazing, it's worth creating, not just creating in that way, it's recording it. If you want to change the world or leave a mark, it's worth recording. I also believe when you write things down, it kind of gives it shape. When we talk about it, it's a dream, but when you write it down and schedule it, it gives it form. It's really important. Do a what if journal, and you can make this just a few pieces of paper. Number 9, we have here implement a rapid prototyping. And we talked about this earlier. And here we go back. It's process, um, a progress over perfection. And sometimes, if you have a new idea and you have a simple, quick prototype out in the marketplace, it gives you quick feedback. It allows your guests and service, um, outcomes to get some feedback. Also, it helps you to create marketing tactics around it. And I honestly believe earn quick protocoling can reveal some potential, not just feasibilities, it can also help you be successful without significant investments. And we talked about earlier, and I learned this from Wolfgang Puck. He always said, I have this really creative chef, and he was Matt, was his name at the time. And he said, Matt is amazingly good in coming up with things really, really quick. I can tell him 3 days and he comes up with something amazing. If I would give him 3 more days, the product might not be much better. It will be a little bit better, but not a lot better. But it's really important for us to roll it out, to get customer feedback, to market it around it, tweak it what we need to do. And the less time we spend on it, what we talked about, you can do something without significant investment. Because sometimes we make it super complicated. And my thing around complicated is really simple. Complexity is the enemy of your execution. If we make it too complicated, we will never get it done. And doing something, what we call the rapid deployment or protocoling or prototyping, will kind of take that away because we want to have it to market in 3 days. We tweak it, we make it better. But when we have consumer feedback, we talked about that feedback loop earlier, it allows us to do everything else around it. And sometimes some amazing stuff comes out of that because if you overthink it, sometimes we make it too complicated. So really, really important. And before we get to number 10, I want to encourage you to click below. If you haven't done so, make sure you join our Disruptive Chef Club. And you could go to the disruptivechef.club. It's our private community. You get some feedback from us. We're using you guys as some test subjects or our mentor board where you kind of give us feedback back. Hey, says, Christian, can you talk about this? Or we would like to know more about that. It's a really great way of staying engaged and being in our circle, and we're going to share the latest and greatest what we do with you. So if you haven't done so, please join the Disruptive Chef, that club. And if you haven't done so, make sure you like this episode, share it with a friend who you feel you need it. And if you want to reignite your creative passion, listen to it again. And so we started out, we talked to begin with is set a time for that creative exploration. From there, we overlaid, hey, find a way to stay engaged and inspired. And I call it the personal inspiration library. From there, if you have some daily creative routines, it will keep that juices flowing. It's really, really important. And having that feedback loop from your mentors, from your guests, from your peers will keep them engaged, and you will be amazed on how real world your progress or your product or whatever you want to do will be. Then we overlaid um, just get yourself engaged with some new experiences. Then use constraints as a creative tool, and then harness the power of visual thinking, having a mood board, having a vision board, doing some mind mapping, super powerful. And then if you overlay a what if journal, nothing can stop you. Because if you from there have that rapid prototyping, you're on the road to success. And I honestly believe the road to success and the road to failure are the same road. The people on the road to failure just get off the road too early. And I started this process in 2011. So stick with it. You will see, you will find your way. And then number 10 for me is engaging a peer mentorship group. If you want to call it a mentorship group, I like to call it a mastermind. Because if you get a group of creative thinkers, marketing folks, or anybody in our industry together, you honestly share, you ask for honest feedback, you will shorten your learning curve in anything you do. For me, being part of a mastermind was my biggest needle mover. Also, being part of a mastermind forced me to be open to feedback. It forced me to share my ideas because we talked about this earlier and have it here create because I honestly believe we create in conversation. So being part of a mastermind can be the needle mover for you because I honestly believe that 90% of the chefs out there are a skill, a connection, one new opportunity away for a whole different life. And a mastermind can do this for you. I believe in it so much that I created my own mastermind. We call it the Business Disruptor Mastermind. If you want to know more, let us know below, and we will make sure we get you a free membership to that. So for me, those were my 10 tips, and they are created in a way that you can implement them tomorrow. You can implement rapid prototyping tomorrow. You can have that feedback loop tomorrow. You can put yourself constraints on the projects you have if it's financially, time, equipment based today. You can join a mastermind today. And I honestly believe if you just take one or two of them and you build on them every day, you will have a total different life, a total different career, and a total different impact in your restaurants, in your communities, and with your family. I hope that was helpful. Again, we are here every Monday and every Thursday. If you haven't done so, please join our Disruptive Chef Club community. We would love to have you. Not only would we love to have you, we would like to get some feedback around you. Leave us some feedback because we read every single comment because it's important to us that we provide high quality content to you. So I want to say thanks for being here today. I hope you found those 10 tools helpful. Until next time, remember, disrupt the kitchen. Fire up your career. Stay hungry for change. I'm Christian, the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur host. I'm signing off. Be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. With that, I want to say thank you